Welcome to the Collective Perspective. This is a collaborative program with friends that share an interest in the truth as it is, not simply as we wish it would be.
Tonight we have a special presentation of the Collective Perspective. We'll be interviewing featured guests, the Venus Project. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Now it's raining here, so you may hear noise in the background, or we may get cut off. I have satellite connection.
That's what it is.
It's very noisy here. Is that interfering?
I hear a little bit. It sounds like either rain or traffic in the background.
It's raining. I just want to mention that when we get invited to speak at like a university or something, we reject being on panels with other people because first we say we need an hour to introduce this direction, or at least 45 minutes, because it is so different. When you make certain statements and other people are all giving their ideas, it sounds preposterous without understanding the whole concept, and you can't get very far in describing it. So it might be better to do it without a panel. Is that?
Unless the panel is familiar with the Venus Project.
Yeah, unless the panel's familiar with the Venus Project.
Yeah, they all are familiar with you. I found out about you through the Zeitgeist movement, as I'm sure many people have. And a lot of people on this panel have found out about you the same way. If you're unfamiliar with the Venus Project, we're going to start with an introduction to what their initiatives are, as well as helping you understand a little bit more about its founders. So why don't we allow the founders to introduce themselves and tell us about where they've come from, where they're going, and what they have planned for the future.
Well, I'm Roxanne Meadows, and I've been working with Jaques Fresco, who founded the Venus Project, and for about 35 years now. And we're working on many different projects. You can take a look at thevenusproject.com to learn more about it in terms of the projects we're working on. You want to give an introduction?
Yeah, I would say that the Venus Project is an attempt to put an end to war, race prejudice, unemployment, and most crimes. And the way that can be done is if the majority of people have the information as to what the Venus Project is, they can think about it. But if they don't have that information, I will present it now. We hope eventually to inform people in how the Venus Project operates. The Venus Project calls for a resource-based economy instead of the use of money. With money, you can pay people off, you can sell drugs. When you do away with the monetary system or outgrow the need for it, then you don't have the corruption which is put forth by money. With money, you can pay off senators, you can bribe people with it, you can have gambling, you can sell drugs without the use of money. When we do away with money or surpass the need for it, that's the end of corruption, paying people off. And so what I'm saying is that the Venus Project calls for declaring all the Earth's resources as the common heritage of all the world's people. In that way, when few nations control most of the Earth's resources, you're going to have territorial disputes. You're going to have invasions and wars. Only when people work together toward a common social arrangement for the benefit of all the world's people, and then to eventually do away with all the artificial boundaries that separate people. We want to unify the world into a global system. That's essentially what the Venus Project is about.
You know, we want to update society to our latest technologies, essentially, and our understanding of human behavior. We have the resources to feed, house, and clothe everyone on Earth. We don't have the money to do any of those things. So the money system is really obsolete. Everybody is in debt to everyone else. It promotes scarcity and planned obsolescence. We don't need that system anymore. It was devised before the scientific method even. So we want to evolve to a resource-based economy where all goods and services are available to everyone without the use of money, barter, credit, or servitude of any kind. It's really, it's not politics that we need. It's the intelligent management of the Earth's resources that's lacking. And the Venus Project proposes an entire socio-economic plan to update society.
Well, very well put, Roxanne. That's exactly what it is.
In looking at some of the plans that obviously all of us on this program support, I also wanted to make sure that I was having a well-rounded look at what others might think. And in looking at some of the Venus Project naysayers who are against the idea of doing away with money, my personal thoughts are that I think sometimes it's difficult for people to imagine what can be because they're basing their outlook on what has been. What would you say to those that question the idea that we could live without money or trade?
Well, if you don't want war, you don't want poverty, if you don't want unemployment, you have to change the way we manage our social affairs. And what I'm offering is a possible way out of this dilemma. In fact, most crimes can be eliminated when the public has access to the necessities of life without the need for money or a price tag.
Money doesn't represent anything that's real. You can't eat it. You can't run your car on it. It's a fictitious thing. It doesn't even represent the effort that people really put out in terms of how to reward certain people for certain efforts that they put out. It creates elitism. It creates corruption, greed, embezzlement, crime, aberrant behavior. They don't know how much the system that they live under, the monetary system, affects their very way of thinking. Everything that you learn is to perpetuate this system. All the values you learn in school is to perpetuate this system. And this system is very detrimental, even to the wealthiest. They don't understand how well they could live in a resource-based economy. If goods and services are made available and people have access to whatever they need, they wouldn't be equal, their needs are different, then you wouldn't have to put bars on your window if you were wealthy. You know, if you drove the best car with the best brakes and the best automatic systems, but somebody can't afford a brake job, they can hit your car and kill you and your kids. So it doesn't pay for society in a resource-based economy to make anything that wears out, breaks down, and to be detrimental to people. We call accidents technical negligence. And we can design a society where most of the accidents are removed. You have more people killed in automobile crashes than you do in wars. It's, you know, you put everybody inside a car and to drive themselves under all sorts of conditions. And what do you expect? So you really want to design it out of the scenario. So you don't have cars, but you have transportation units that can take you safely any place in a city.
What would you suggest to those who perhaps have become so accustomed to the feeling of freedom of being in a car? For myself, being from Southern California, I can tell you that while there is carpooling initiated in Southern California, the grand majority of people really enjoy the freedom of being in their vehicle alone, going somewhere without really considering where that fuel is coming from or what using that fuel is feeding systematically.
I think you've been very brainwashed, and I think your options are very limited as to what you call freedom.
And so with what the Venus Project promotes, please tell us a little bit more about how one would use transportation.
Okay. And you can picture Radio City, New York, if you know what it's like. Radio City, New York has an elevator system. And you press a button, and the elevator will let you out at any floor you wish to be let out of. In other words, in a skyscraper, you can choose to walk up the steps if you want to, or you can take an elevator. An elevator can take you anywhere within that skyscraper. except in the old days when people used to operate elevators, they had difficulty making proper adjustments